Wow, this is so cool to meet you. And thank you so much, Gordon, for taking the time to have a conversation with me. Everyone, this is Gordon Studer, and he's a California artist, and he's agreed to have a conversation with me about art, inspiration, approach, and whatever else you want to share with us today. So
Thanks.
welcome.
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I stumbled upon you in Instagram, but also I have a feeling through Nick Wilton, because I've taken CVP and you have too. So who knows where and how, but
Right.
It's been really wonderful to watch you, see your work, and I love what I'm seeing. So I've got some questions and just want to hear more about your inspiration and your approach. But before we get to that, I'd love you to just give us some context about, your journey here. So I do know that you were an illustrator. Well, I'll leave it to you. You can share what you like, just so that everyone.
I'm going to give you the long story, but I'm going to try to do it quick. You know, I had a mother that loved art, just loved art. And as a small child, she would, in New York City and stuff, would take me to all the museums as a tiny little kid, plays and museums. My father was an architect that got involved with behavioral science. We lived in university towns my whole life. So this sort of higher thinking was always present because we lived in university settings. That's what people were doing. I got involved in sports, and that was everything for me.
Oh, wow.
I played football, basketball, and I was going to go to college, go to Penn State to play football. There was no way I was going to make it, and so then I had to make what was the alternative, and I had always liked art. I took a class. My teacher said, you have to be an art major. And so it was my second. Sports was really what I wanted to do, but I had always loved art. I'd never taken an art class ever. So I become an art major. I get a degree in a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And then what?
Right.
I go to DC, I bartend, and then I get a job with a commercial design place. So I get involved in the whole commercial part. End up coming to California to work for a newspaper to do just illustration, because in those days you could be an illustrator, at a newspaper. And then the digital revolution came along, and I saw that as an opportunity. So I was one of the very first people to learn digital illustration. Like I was a beta tester for Adobe. We were testing Illustrator and Photoshop. And so then I broke off into a freelance career that was great. And I want to say not so much because my illustrations were great, but I was one of the few digital guys. And so that just took off. And so I became a freelancer and did really well for like 20 years. And, I really thought I'd made it. I'm an artist. And so I just kept going. But as my career went on, I got older, I kind of realized it was a shadow career. Like something about the commercial aspect of it wasn't the same as fine art. And suddenly I realized I have to be a fine artist. Like, that's my calling. And, but you know what? I couldn't have made this move until my later years in life. I needed all that experience and all that design background and illustration really serves me right now, as far as, and even life experience.
Yeah.
Because I have something to say in my paintings, or I think I do, or I'm trying to figure that out. So it's only been about 2 years that I've been full-time fine artist. So, and things have just exploded. Like, it's moving so fast, I have to pinch myself sometimes.
I love that.
I'm just so grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so scared because it really is sort of leaping off, taking a leap of faith and getting a studio like this in Sausalito. And, there's a lot of overhead, and it's the business side of it. But you know what? It's like the most exciting time of my life right now. And it's the latter part of my life, which is.
Isn't that fantastic?
It's awesome. Yeah,
That's
it really is.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm just going to interject and say, yeah, I think for me, this is the most exciting part of my life. And it's because of art. It's,
Yep.
you know, I was a graphic designer in Vancouver, and we moved here 10 years ago, and to do something completely different, blue sky. That's why we came here. Let's just fling it in the air and
Right.
we started a guest suite, but that gave me a reason to paint. And because as a graphic designer, I'm used to working for someone else, but that was a door in. And I'm just having such a great experience in life because I've finally come back to what it was that I wanted to do when I was like 14 or something.
Right. And, you know, I got to tell you that it's just like painting, just the act of painting. And like more than I ever have, like daily, or, you know, get in the studio 5 times a week. The actual act of painting, this conduit type of relationship you have where you open up and you actually let your ego go, like things are flowing through you. And that opens up the rest of your other parts of your life.
Absolutely.
That's when things started to just come, like opportunities and good things started to happen. I mean, you had to live a little bigger, which gets scary.
Yeah.
But it's the way you want to live, but it's all due to, and I find when I get too involved in the business side of it, or I'm not in the studio doing painting, I lose that energy of flow and things coming to me.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, because we do have to do the practical stuff too. But if you lose sight of that, I'm going to say in spirit energy, that thing that connects you to nature, your curiosity, your creativity, if you lose sight of that, and we do have to sometimes because we can focus on the thing, you know,
right. We got to do that too. Right.
Yeah. It feels different. And you do feel that kind of like, don't you find it takes a while to reconnect again? It could be.
Oh yeah. It's, I'm going through it a little bit. I had the whole summer to just say it's time to paint and replenish my inventory because that's my biggest problem right now.
Okay. Good problem.
Yeah.
Sort of.
But still it is a problem because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. So I was like, oh, I got the whole summer. This is going to be great. And then I just hit like a block. And I just, you know, that's why teaching is so great. Mm-hmm. Because the things that I tell my students, you know, I don't always do them.
Yeah.
So I have to I got to walk the walk a little bit. And so I hear myself talking to my students and that I can talk to myself about this. It helps.
This is so good to hear because I find that too. I'll be like, check your values, Pauline. Because you tell them.
Totally. Totally. I mean, I think that in a way, every artist should do something similar to that, or at least have a way where they can reflect on going back to, you know, the principles of what you need to be looking at. And that's why teaching is really good, or taking lots of workshops. I think even like really established artists, it's a great practice to go get a different experience somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure.
I think that I talk a lot about, you know, tapping into your intuition, but then also being very analytical and doing this dance. And I am quite a practical person. You know, I was working by the age of 10. My dad had this huge dairy farm, my mom and dad. So I was working before school and after school, hardly had time for homework. But so I know how to work. The thing for me is that I've done a lot of in the last 10, 15 years. Well, even more than that, listening to my intuition. And that's been teased out more in the last 10 years in art. But it still has to be this like into it creatively, but then out of it, you know, asking questions and looking at it from a strategic point of view. And that kind of, you know, dance is sort of what you're talking about a bit, because if you teach, then you kind of have that access to that already because you have to convey it elsewhere. But you can do it for yourself as well if you remind yourself Remind yourself to
No.
ask yourself.
And I really get involved with like looking at the students' work. Like a lot of times after the class is over, I'll sit there for an hour after they leave and sit in front of their work and really look at it and get like absorbed and try to almost start to feel what it is they're doing.
Yeah,
Always in a positive way.
absolutely.
Because I'm not looking to critique it or anything. I'm just looking for what really works and then giving them that confidence to do that. And that's what I always need to do. Like, I need to sit back. First of all, I just need to let it flow.
Yeah.
And you got to sit back and look at what you got. But you got to step back because you've got to start to see what's working and not like you need to take that time to do that. So it's that, you're right. It's the same thing. It's that dance between letting it flow and then sitting back and looking at what you have. And the flowing part, like I can do the looking at it. Like I know how to balance a painting, like move the values around, like I got that. But it's the flowing and let the accidents happen and working multiple panels. I love, even when they're big, I'll work 3 5-foot panels as a mural, then I'll break them out and finish them. But it's that way of taking the pressure off. Like, I don't want my ego to try to get involved with that part of it. I just want the flow to happen, then step back and do some kind of inventory about what I have to work with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There was something you said that, oh shoot, what was it? I should write these things down.
Look, I have a little notepad, so you need to.
Oh, good for you. Well, I think it was about letting it flow. That's what it was. And that, it was about you. Okay. So you, for example, this summer, you came into your studio and you're like, I'm going to paint all summer and I'm going to create new inventory, and you kind of hit a wall. And that flow, like, how did you get that going again? And was that like, were you inspired by like something that came to you, or did you sort of hunt down something to focus on?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, I think that, I mean, you have to do a little introspection of your own soul because they're very related. So I think I was dealing with some personal stuff. Like there was something I wanted to sort of move past in my life to actually live this bigger art life. And I needed to, and so I think I was doing that, and it was being reflected in the art. Like they were tight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think it was part of the process. And so it's not even till the end of the summer right now, everything's starting to now open up. Right. But that's okay even that I had to go through all that frustration. Now something has moved. And now things are happening fast.
Right.
Like, paintings are finishing and stuff. But all that underpainting too reflects some of that frustration. And that's beautiful stuff that's under there. But now it's a little freer. So it's hard to explain. Like, I even think when you are stuck, like, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, it's almost like that's part of it. It means you're being true, actually. It means you're not falling back on a recipe that works all the time. It's like you're really into it, and you want to get something out, and it's not happening, and you're doubting yourself. And I mean, it's all part of it. I mean, I think that's what's so great about doing this, because it's so interrelated with who you are. And then, and one other thing I do is and like in my workshops, I do these exercises that help people not be so uptight. And so that's it's the multiples that really pay off for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder when you got a 6-foot painting, but I still do that. Like if I'm doing a commission that's 6 foot, I get 3 panels made of the same size.
Yeah.
And I'll work it as a mural first. And that frees me up because I'm not trying to be so focused on making one thing work. I'm always looking for mistakes that are amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They're way better than anything I could ever imagine trying to
Absolutely, absolutely. And you just touched on one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was that, you know, that working on multiples is your way in, and mine too, because there are pieces that just get me stumped. And it's like, it's not even a big, it's not really a big problem. It's just that for some reason I can't see it. So I just keep working on all the others, and I put that one aside. And when I'm, I'll keep looking at it, and then I come back to it, it's like, it's your value.
Right.
It's your values. Hello.
Sometimes if they sit around long enough, you're like, it actually works.
Yeah, I know that.
Like, you just don't appreciate it. There's something that you want it to be that it is never going to be, but it is what it is, and it actually works. So you have to just let it be sometimes what it is.
I know this happened to me last week, where I wanted to put a post up that was different than, the last few. So I took a photograph of one of the small pink paintings at the top, and I thought, I don't really like it, but I'll take a picture of it. And I took a picture. I'm like, oh, that's good.
Right. Or frame it.
Yeah, I put it, like, I did a fake frame around it in the room app, and it was like, oh my God, that looks so good, and of course, lots of people loved it. It was a really nice design. I just struggled with it. And I think sometimes the struggling with a painting, that emotion gets embedded in it. So every time you go and visit that painting, that's what you're seeing, not the actual painting, which is why, and I'm sure you do this too, although probably more compressed if you have to create a lot of work. But if you can give it some space, which is really giving you space to process what it is that you're kind of at logger juggernauts with, Right.
I mean, same thing, like in class, I'll say, you're one move away from making this whole thing work. Like, one move.
Great.
One little move, like one little thing, a white thing up here, one thing, you don't know how close you could be. Or you've already got it. You just got to sit back and appreciate it, because I find that they keep painting because they just feel like, I'm painting. It's like, and that's why I do the 9 panels. I do this thing with 9 panels.
You do that with 12, right? Like a 12 by 12 altogether?
We do 10 by 10s, just because the desk size. I normally would do 12. And so I have them work it as a full painting, and they get absorbed. Now, sometimes they don't fall for the trick because they know they're going to separate them. But then we pull out 2 of them, and they're great. Now, some people don't think that's a good enough ratio, but I think it's a fantastic ratio.
It is.
So, I mean, and it works almost every time. That's what I love about it.
I still want to try that, because I saw you did that, and I thought, oh, I've thought of doing that on the floor and then taping them all together so they don't move around and stuff. The wall is a good idea too.
Well, it came from, I was in LA, and I needed to paint like 20 12 by 12s, and I had like a certain amount of time. And so I started working, and I did 1, and then I did 2, and I go, if I go at this rate, it's going to take me 6 months. So I go, I better figure something out. So I made this nail system where I could do 9 12 by 12s. And I started working this way, and bam, bam. Then I replace them and then work it big again. And then bam, bam. Next thing you know, it's like they were just happening. Fantastic. It was great. I mean, it was new. So
do you find you have to trick yourself sometimes to freshen up your brain? Because I'll move my palette to my left side, which is not as convenient, just to make my brain have to work differently every 10 days.
I'll even, I work here in this studio, a building with like 100 artists in it.
Oh, wow.
So it's great. So you get some feedback. And also I do this thing where I'll go up and paint with a fellow artist for 2 days. Oh. Just change the environment. And also we work on, like, we even will say, you know what, I want to kind of get your spontaneity and your energy. And they're saying to me, I want to get your colors and some of your shapes. So we kind of feed each other, but just being in that other environment and a different energy, you come up with some really great stuff that, as nice as your studio could be, you get tired of it, kind of.
Yeah, it becomes very normal.
Right, you just keep coming into the same place. And so I'll do that sometimes, like switch it up and go work somewhere.
That's really fortunate that you can do that. Because what I find is I get these wonderful ideas about what's going to happen in my studio, and then I get here
Right.
and it's not the same. And so I will paint on the floor, on the wall, on the table. I don't really use my left hand unless I really want something that's, you know, very organic and loose. Because
Right.
I do want to develop my dexterity the way that I want it to move. I do
Right.
want the happy accidents. But anyway, I have to shake things up often in here because you know, everywhere I go, there I am. And I'm, you know, I just want it to continuously get topped up.
Right.
So it sounds like you've got a really
Well,
great,
and you know, you were all, us artists were such junkies for new techniques, right?
oh God, yeah.
God,
And
yes. So you could,
materials.
like I didn't even know about the jelly plate, and I just started using the jelly plate. Like how fun that is. It's just, and now I use a masking fluid, which is really great. I'm using that, and so it's always looking for a new way to just apply paint because
Yeah.
it gives you a different experience, a little more energy. Yeah, so that's why it's good in this building because there's so much going on that you're saying like, how did you do that and stuff like that, and so you can try new things out.
You just walk the walk and you've already had a workshop after you visited everyone just by
Right.
seeing a bunch of new stuff. So one of the things that I was thinking about because I love your work and I do know that you use masking, and I'm so with you on the materials and approaches, because what happens is that I surprise myself, but I also see something new from myself. Like, and they're two different things. One is like, you know, it feels good, but the other is the possibilities are endless. And I just happened upon it by something that I did, which really feeds you by exploring and discovering. So when you are working, like I'm talking about inspiration and approach here, but do you, like, you're pretty process driven too, because you are trying things out, you're exploring, or do you have a plan? That's kind of, you know, as far as, yeah, I thought not.
Never a plan.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, I mean, but I have intentions like seeing where I want my work to go, like, and there are some directions that I'm still interested in,
Right.
like simplifying and because I always do these forms and shapes, they become very graphic. Yet some of my underpaintings are super beautiful, and in some ways, there's something about that that is almost, I wish I could just stop and maybe develop that a little bit more. So I'm working with sort of that a little bit with some things, but you know, it's pretty fast paced because you got commissions, you're trying to build inventory. So it's easy to go to what you know.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep moving. And I mean, I really want to do figurative stuff too. Like I've been thinking about that for a long time, very sort of abstract figurative. But yeah, it's just trying to find the time to do that.
So that's a really good, you know, question to look at, because, well, for me, I'm taking this year to really just explore a lot. So I'm making less available on my website. I do enter into shows, but very minimally, because I don't want any pressure to just do what I can do. I want to do something new. And that's work like that. I've been doing this sort of research, if you will, for several months. And now I'm feeling like, oh, okay, I'm getting where I want to be heading, which is really great. But who knows how long it'll take. So how do you figure that in, or do you not know yet?
As far as say again, so
you know, some of the things that you want to make room for, but right now it's pretty fast track.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is this is my first year. I've just finished the first year in this building. This is a huge like leap for me, like overhead expense type thing with this. And I've moved to this area. I'm in Marin. It's like the most expensive area in the world. And so I've got to sell paintings and I've got to make this work. So you just got to be brave. Like if I'm going to make a move to try something new, it's just, but I think that what I'm realizing is what's working for me is staying very unique to who I am. like
Yeah.
trying to hold the line, because you do see what could sell, but it's starting to pay off. My uniqueness is starting to pay off. And so that gives me the confidence to say, if I'm feeling like I want to move into a new direction, I think that just is more about who I am, and it's going to work.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to find the same people that are interested in my work will like this direction. And I do work with some people that encourage, like art buyers and some showrooms and stuff, that actually don't say, give me the same thing that you before. They encourage new things.
Yeah.
And they see stuff that's new and fresh, and they really love it. You know, so that helps me trying to keep things fresh and trying to develop. I mean, I feel like I'm looking at my age and I'm trying to go, you better paint, because I just want to see how much painting I can get in before I go. You know, because I feel like there's so much more room for me to create in so many directions and things I want to do. And you know how long it can take to do a painting. So
yeah. And my mantra is, there's a lot of paint in this studio. I have to use that before I'm 90.
Right, totally.
I like that. I love that you shared that willingness to explore, but also remain authentic and unique and in alignment with who you are. And that also includes your expansiveness for your future, whatever that is, because we can quite often be frightful or fearful that if we do veer away from what everyone has grown to love about what we do, that we'll be left all alone with all of our new work, right?
Well, that's why early in your painting career, you be careful what you do, because you can get pigeonholed in a place you don't want to be. But all you want to be is, so like, I like that my identification is unique, like maybe a little different. Some people, they don't like it, but it's like, I want it to feel a little like edgy and not quite balanced, and have people feel a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it gives me carte blanche to try new things like that, because that's what they're expecting from me.
Absolutely.
So one of the things, though, it reminds me of sports, actually, because that does help me. And so, like, when you've got pressure under you, but the only way to perform is to let it flow, because that's when you, like playing tennis, you know, the score's 6-6, but the only way you're going to hit this beautiful shot is if you're in tune and you can let it flow. So it's the same thing here. There's some pressure to do certain things business-wise and produce art, but you've got to find the sort of spiritual space to let it flow, even in the presence of pressure.
It's true. And there's a certain, I think that pressure or a need or a question or a problem that needs to be solved does kind of, induce creativity. I mean, that's where, because if there's no problems to solve, then, I'm always figuring stuff out and trying to solve problems. I love that. But if I didn't have anything, I don't even know if I'd do anything, you know?
That's why sometimes if you're feeling like you're painting and you're like, oh my God, I hate it, but you're so worked up and you just feel this angst, and it's like, oh boy, you're close.
Yeah.
Like, you're close for something. Something's going to happen. If this is bugging you so much, something's about to break through. So it's actually a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it when I get frustrated with a painting, because I usually, and I've done this way before, when I started painting, and I would spend hours just kind of painting around in a circle. And then I realized that I had to do more stepping back. But before I realized that, I would get so frustrated with the painting that I would just make a really bold move. And then I'd go to get a cloth to wipe it off. And then when I turned and looked, I was like, oh my God, that's interesting.
And then the next time we try to do that, we're not really, okay, I'm going to act really, but you're kind of faking it. But you want to find that place. Mark making is so interesting. And I'm watching some of your videos. I really love the way you make marks. Like,
thank you.
I actually talk to students about, like, there's so many workshops where they go, just let loose, and everyone goes, do, 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 do. And they all look the same.
Yeah.
Like letting loose looks the same, but what I like to say is pretend you're using a Ouija board, or pretend like an alien is communicating, and I love that's how you make your marks, like you're channeling something. And I love that. And that's so important in work, that kind of strange looking mark making, and you're really strong at that. And but yeah, that's
it's like, for me, that's about me. And this is what I want to share with the artists that I work with, and you too, I'm sure. It's about me dialing into me and my experience of XYZ. And I've done this swirly whirly, and I'm just like, who is that? Who that's not, just get that off. That doesn't work for me. I've done it, handwriting in my paintings, and I look at them for a moment, I think, oh, it's so pretty. And then it's like that. I don't do pretty. Like, I don't do pretty. I want.
But I love also, you did this thing where you're like, go slow. And one of the things I really like to do is these contradictory things. Like, take your time to try to make a really spontaneous looking mark.
Yeah.
But take your time to kind of emulate that look of a spontaneous, and then with like maybe really precise shapes that you would do, try doing them really fast.
Yeah.
Like, it's the contradiction in them that gives it some energy.
Yeah. Interesting, because I do feel that when I slow myself down, I really dial into myself. And when I go too fast, it's like I went to sleep or something. Like my arm just did some move that I've seen a million times.
Right.
From writing, perhaps, like,
Right.
just on a larger scale. So that's kind of key too. That approach is just really making the space for you to make the mental space for you to arrive energetically without any of that chatter out there, or even the chatter in here about what you want it to look like, and just start experiencing yourself.
Right.
With the paint, the tools, the mark making. Like, I mean, that sounds really like intangible, but it is tangible. But there needs to be space, like a lot of space, right?
Totally. I mean, yeah, you have to. And sometimes the pace in which it's created is very important.
Yeah.
Slowing down sometimes to do that, and really letting yourself connect. That's the whole thing. Is it a real mark? Like, does it have your soul in it? You've got to make sure that it is, because sometimes these haphazard marks that even other like workshops will say, like, go crazy, everyone go crazy. They actually, I've seen those marks before.
Yeah.
Like, they're not that unusual.
Yeah.
So I actually like the one to just, how can you connect in whatever way? But maybe people that are a little too like precious about things, maybe they do need to dance and then kind of put themselves in a different kind of situation where they're working faster. I mean, we all do this stuff. Like, I've got this, you do all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
You're just trying to think of ways that you lose control. I took a workshop in San Miguel. God, I can't remember his name. So good. Chris. Anyhow.
It'll come through.
We do draw these like portraits. He wanted us to draw portraits. And first of all, oh my God, it's like going back to college. Do I even know how to draw anymore? But so we would do, with our right hand, and we draw. And then suddenly he would go like, now hold it like a caveman. Now go to your left hand and hold. The harder it got to control, the more energy the drawing had. And the left-handed drawings like a caveman, I loved those so much. Those figurative pieces I did, because it's and I had to go slow. Because it was hard to hold it.
Yeah, I love that.
It's like sometimes I always feel like, specially challenged adults that create artwork. It's so like, there's the beauty of the childlike mark, but yet they still are adults and they have some kind of sophistication. I think it's some of the best art I've ever seen from them. And there's a way in which we have to kind of get in that mindset.
It's true.
And so I think doing things like that, drawing with like, trying to make something controlled and beautiful is boring.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, in our lives, there are so many things that we need to do to fit in, just to get things happening, you know, like just to get your bills paid, just to get from A to B, just to be a contributing part of society. So the art making, though, you can do whatever you want, but we're so trained to behave that we have to untrain ourselves to just, and that's, I mean, that's not easy. But I love just all of these different ideas of finding ways to get loose.
Different ways, yeah.
Just to wrap up this conversation, I want to give you the opportunity, Gordon, to talk about the workshop that you have coming up, because it sounds really, really exciting. So just for a couple of minutes, maybe you want to share what's happening in September. I think you got 2 coming up. One's full already, is it?
One's full, yeah. It's September 10th and 11th, and that one is full. But sometimes there are cancellations and I have a waiting list. And then September 17th and 18th, and I do it right here in the studio. So it has to be, you know, you have to live somewhere close by, and yeah, we do all those things that I've been talking about. And so we're here doing that, and everyone gets lots of room because we need it, because we're doing these multiples. So there's lots of space to work. And yeah, it's a 2-day thing. And then we go through this process of kind of the way I work. We build up the background just first, and we know how that's fun, right?
Fun part.
It's like so fun. But what happens is, even if you build up that background and then you white it out, even that subtle background, now suddenly if you make a beautiful spontaneous mark, the whole painting could work. But if you don't have that already, it's too fresh. It's too like early in the process to call it finished. So you want to get it prepped to be able to be finished at any moment. Just having that little bit of richness. And then we just do the multiples, and then we pull them out and we start working on, and then we look more at the stuff like value and, you know, how is it quite balanced? Let's learn it. Let's kind of get it balanced. And is there that one mark that's going to make the whole thing come alive?
Wow.
Like creating a focal point of energy, like making sure it's not too much wallpapery. Like we want some energy.
Right.
So that's basically the process. And I just find that it works for all levels. Like, doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, the more experienced sometimes are a little bit more stubborn about it.
I'm sure.
They don't want to. They don't want to split up the 9. They go, I love this big one.
Yeah. Oh God. I'll bet you that there you're going to earn your money. Trying to get them to push. Yeah, that's great.
And then I always take pride in when they then go off and can sell these, you know, from the workshop. It's always, you know, it's always nice to see that can actually translate into that.
Yeah, because they've pushed themselves and they've dug deeper, and they've explored, and they've come up with a piece in the end, you know. That's wonderful. And
then we've got the frames here. So you look at it in a frame and suddenly it looks great. So
you know what, that really makes a difference too. If you're ever struggling with a painting, stick a frame on it, and then I used to just paint the sides on the big ones, just paint the sides. As soon as I got rid of those drip marks, I could see
it started to look like that.
Like, okay to have that in a gallery or not?
I think the other thing is, you know, I'm learning a lot, like as we go along, because I've only, you know, this is my first year of teaching, and it's really about, I'm seeing that's like, sometimes a lot of people come in with expectations about wanting, and also if you're a teacher, they're looking at your work, they like your work. And so they're wanting to go, and you know, sometimes my stuff's hanging, I almost don't want to have my work up.
Sure.
So they don't even, and they started to say, well, it's not that and that. And they go, but it is, look what you've done. You've made a shift in your own voice.
Yeah.
And suddenly, if you can just get them to see it, because I really talk about this workshop being about developing an editor's eye. Like, I don't think I'm a good artist, but I know I have a good eye for good art.
Mm-hmm.
So I just am always looking for it in my own art. Like, oh, there's something good happened because I can see it. I'm not saying I have like I can just make that happen sometimes. So it's about them getting to see their own work and appreciate it. And then when they do something new, see how that is their own language and start to learn to appreciate that shift in their work. And that's how they're going to start to grow with their own voice. So that's kind of my goal, is to try to make it fun and easy, look for mistakes, but then have them sit back and appreciate what's happening in their own work.
Yeah, I love that, because it's almost like, if I can use the analogy, because we have these, gosh, what are they called now? Oh, shoot, I forgot. They're not eagles. But anyway, I've been watching these birds around here and watching these two young ones learning to fly. I mean, they're big birds, and there's a really high nest if the name comes to me. But the point is, it's the unfolding of wings and the trying out, can I do this? And it takes practice, and to appreciate what it is that you've done. Like, even if you don't think you like it, you might walk out for lunch and come back and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I thought that was an ugly color, and I think it's actually really awesome for that piece.
Or we just rotate your work, and there it is.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it?
It's just trying to develop that eye. And that's why also it's just like, I always tell them, like, start to activate your eyes in your own life, like everywhere you're going. Like, take pictures and then look for value all the time. Like, always look at the black and white mode of things, and you're going to start to see that the things that are attractive in the world have value, contrasts, and stuff like that. And so you're seeing it everywhere, not just in your artwork. And so it's just, if you can start to develop an editor's eye, it kind of takes the pressure off, because all you're saying is, I can see something that's working. Now, that means all you got to do is start throwing paint against stuff and then look for the thing that's working, as opposed to this thing like, I got to make it work. I got to do sketches. It's got to work just like I want. You're almost being, your ego's too big, like, because the best art is created in nature and by haphazard. So you're saying that you can somehow produce something better than that? You can't. There's no way.
Isn't that interesting? Because while you're composing, like, you're using your analytical mind to see what's balanced or not, how's my composition, how's the design, color, what have you, you are looking to do something. But the other side of it is very free and in alignment with the expression of yourself. And that actually can't simply just be designed. It has to be you inviting you into the piece as well. And it's this whole really interesting dance, isn't it, Gordon?
And I just think people get so, they get consumed with that square. Because you always, we always talk about that. You got to think outside of that.
Yeah.
And so when you can get good enough at it by you working multiples just to get used to that, because you really are doing it for real, then suddenly you can learn to work on a square without trying to control it so much, and letting the energy flow off and creating something. But so anyhow, so I think we're always trying to not control that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm going to wrap this up with you a little bit. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with everybody, Gordon.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I really want to say thank you. It's been really interesting, and I love watching your work. Also, everyone, go to Gordon's website. I'll provide a link, and you can go check out his workshop, so that if you happen to be in the area or you want to make a trip, you can get in on this, because he still has some room for you.
Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Awesome.